Hello, and welcome back to the Sex and Healing podcast. I am your host, Erin, and thank you so much for joining me as we take a wild ride together through the realms of sex and healing. Today's episode is a somewhat gloomy declaration that I cannot fix you. We are going to dive into what it really means to heal today, and particularly in relationship to our sexuality and what our sexual healing journey looks like. But today I am coming to you from the glorious Bali. I am back in my nest. I feel so good being back. It was a couple of days of reintegration for sure. When you live on very sacred and high vibrational land, when you're outside of that environment, it's very, very impactful on you. I definitely felt a denseness and a heaviness, especially being in Melbourne, where there are the world's most intense lockdown over the last year has really impacted the city and the people and the community and the culture. But coming back to high vibrational land, there's always an integrational window. And my favorite way to get through that is sleep. And that's what most people find, is when you come back, you're just so tired as your body's changing to match the electromagnetic field of the land here. And it's just, I forgot how much I sleep. So I've slept through all of that. I've come out the other side. I had the most amazing heart opening today, despite the fact that we're in the middle of the eclipse windows. We have Mars in opposition to Pluto this weekend. We have some of the most intense astrology. We've got planets in retrograde. It's just full on this weekend. I had 5 friends reach out today in need of support and care and love. And if you've been feeling that in this past week, know that it's not just you, that you're feeling the intensification from what's happening astrologically. Know that I love you. Know that you're safe. Know that it's all going to be okay. On the other side of this is great healing for all of us. So before I dive into the content today of letting you know that I cannot fix you, I want you to know that I've got a masterclass coming up. I'm so excited about this. This is the foundational information of the teachings of my signature course, Worship, which we are opening the doors to very shortly. So coming along to the masterclass and learning about how to liberate through sexuality, how to increase your sexual satisfaction, is going to give you a really good understanding and some education about what my course is all about. So this is a completely free masterclass. There's absolutely no obligation to purchase or to upgrade or anything. Even if you're not interested in coming along to the course, come along to the masterclass. At least absorb that information. That is a gift from me to you. But if you are interested in worship, this is an amazing place to start. And then there's the opportunity to book a one-on-one call with me if you want to know more about worship, and I can tell you about the course and enroll you from there if you wish. But I'm very excited that's coming up, and the link is through in the bio. So let's have a look at this concept that I cannot fix you. It's really, really important that we have very clear expectations, and expectations that are grounded in reality. And if you want to come and see me, in order to heal your sexuality, I need to let you know that I cannot fix you. This is not something that is changed quickly. It's not something that's changed easily. We are the most diverse species. What we experience as an individual, and I'm going to speak about women in particular because I'm a woman and because I teach women sexuality, every single one of us needs something different in order to heal and awaken our sexuality. If you're experiencing any kind of dissatisfaction with your sexuality, whether that's feeling sexually shut down, whether that's feeling dysfunctional, whether that's feeling shame and guilt, whether that's feeling that your sexuality is expressing in unhealthy or over the top kind of ways, whatever it may be, we cannot teach the same content to every woman on the planet and expect the same result. Everyone needs a unique path. Everyone needs to understand themselves as a woman and get the education and the healing that they need to unravel an extremely complex thing. Women's sexuality is mind-bogglingly complex. Each individual woman is mind-bogglingly complex. So the expectations that you have about healing need to be one of a lifelong journey. You cannot go into a one-off session with the expectation that your sexuality is going to be drastically changed or healed, because it just doesn't work that way. There's so much going on in order, there's so many layers, and it has been going on for so long to get you to where you are now. It's a journey to get back out of there. Now, I don't want you to lose hope, because that journey is absolutely possible, and we live at an amazing time on the planet where education and resources and the privilege is here for us to actually be able to create that change. But we need to know that this is something we commit to for life. There is no short course. There is no one-off session that's going to revolutionize your sexuality. It's an accumulation of a lot of work and a lot of education and a lot of processes and a commitment to those things. We really need to commit to ongoing change. I can give you all the education in the world, but that's not going to create a transformation. What creates a transformation is that when you take the education that you're given and you put it into action, and you change your thoughts and your words and your actions in line with your new education, and then that is going to start to create change and transformation. Like, it's an amazing thing. Sometimes that will all start to accumulate, and you'll have one session or one healing or one final penny drops that expands you open in a massive fucking way. But that is the accumulation of a lot of things in the lead up to that. So the way that I teach worship is, or the way that I heal women's sexuality through the teachings of worship, is over a 5-month journey. And that might seem like a long time from the outside, like if you think about doing something for the next 5 months. But the reality is that's just scratching the surface. I could teach you every single week for the next 5 years, and there's still more to learn. There's still more to transform. It's a very inspiring thing that we have the rest of our lifetime to continue to expand and continue to learn and to continue to have new experiences. It's an amazing thing that our sexual potential will never reach a limit. Our pleasure potential will never reach a limit. If you've been listening to me for a while, you would have heard me repeat these words so many times. But rather than looking at this from that doom and gloom perspective of like, oh my God, I feel so helpless, or it seems so far away, we can instead look at it from that perspective of like, wow, this journey's never going to end. But this journey begins with one step. And that one step might not look like much, and it might not seem like much. But when you commit to that work and you take another step and another step and another step, you will come so far. You will astound yourself at the compounding impact of doing the work every day, of re-educating yourself, of retraining your body and its pleasure pathways and the physical practices and the way that you express your sexuality, from the energetic healing and the spiritual healing and the ancestral healing that's available to us, from the emotional healing that's available for us, and the emotional expression through our sexuality. Like, sexuality as a vehicle is so incredibly, it holds so much potential for healing. Of course, we can just express sex as sex, and for some people that's all they want it to be, and that's amazing. But for me, the essence of everything that I do is about healing. It's about expansion, and it's about growth, and it's about like the repair of the damage that's been done and overcoming trauma. And like, why wouldn't we want to use our sexuality as a means for that? Like, what a fantastic avenue for healing. So today what we're going to do is actually have a look at the Nestled model of trauma. So this is something that is typically applied to attachment theory, but we're going to look at it today from the perspective of sexual healing, and just to recognize how much work there actually is to do when it comes to sexual healing. Now, again, that's not to portray a doom and gloom perspective, but it's for us to be really reasonable about what it takes and the kind of commitment that we need to make to ourselves, and also to give ourselves a bit of a break. I'm going through a window of time right now where I'm really struggling with my sexual energy. I know that this is a reflection of my breakup, and I'm going to share more about this in the future for sure. But where I'm at now is it's a challenging time for me in relationship with my sexuality. And it's amazing, those windows of time that I have, and these cycles and these chapters that we go through where my sexuality is so incredibly expressed and fulfilled and an amazing contribution to my life. And right now it doesn't feel like that, and that comes with a whole new layer of healing for me, to be able to accept myself in this chapter and to be at peace with it, and to also work out what are the practices and what is the healing that I'm going to partake in order to get to the next level and that next cycle and that next chapter of my own sexual evolution. So when we have a look at this Nestled model of trauma, what I'd like you to visualize is a series of concentric circles. So that's kind of like a bullseye where there's a circle in the center and more circles on the outside. Now, for each of us as an individual, it's not necessarily even. It's not going to be some beautiful, perfect, what's the word that I'm looking for? Symmetrical. It's not necessarily going to be symmetrical circles. Each one of us, in our own uniqueness, has different life experiences that interrelate with each other. So at the very center of this nestled model is the self. So when we look at our sexuality, this layer of self is really showing us that we have a unique personality. We have our own epigenetic and genetic expression. We have a personal history, an attachment history, how well we attach to others, and our relational history. We have a sexual history and the sexual experiences and education we have up until this moment in time. At this level of self, we also have the relationship that we have with our body, which is massively impacted because our body is the vehicle to express our sexuality. So if you've got stuff going on with your own body, your relationship with your body, that's going to be a huge area of work in terms of our sexual healing and sexual growth. This also covers our sexual relationship with ourselves and how we have sex with ourselves. Any shame or judgment or disgust that we might hold towards ourselves and our body and our sexuality, also our level of education that we have around those things. So this is one of the reasons why I created my online course, Power and Pleasure, which is about educating people on how to masturbate, because often we don't have that information, and that sexual relationship with ourselves is very, very impacted by a lack of education. So that's one layer of the sexual healing that's available to us, and that's necessary for us all to focus on. The next concentric circle, the next big circle that goes around self, is about relationships. So it's here that all of our sexual experiences with others lay. So it's about what they bring into your sexuality and your relationships. So if you want to go on a sexual healing journey and you're currently in a sexual relationship, then that person and that person's self, that person's history, that person's traumas, that where that person's at with their sexuality is a massive part of your sexual healing journey. Where they're at, how they're responding to you, how much growth they want to go through, whether they're willing to look at their own stuff. This is so important for your sexual healing, is the relationship level and what's going on there, how you might need to modify your relationships. Now, almost everyone that I see come through worship goes through a relationship transformation, whether that's a relationship ends, a relationship transforms, or a new relationship comes into their life. It is astounding to me how often relationships change. Well, there is no other choice. Relationships will change because of your sexual healing. So what's going on there is its whole world of healing that needs to happen, education that needs to happen, transformation that needs to happen. So any abuse or trauma that we've experienced when it comes to another exists at this level. This is a huge, huge layer when it comes to sexuality. So much of our sexuality is an exchange with another. So I know that I had sexually abusive experiences when I was a child. I had domestic violence experiences when I was a child and when I was an adult. These relational experiences drastically impact my sexuality and are a huge focus for me in terms of my sexual healing. So beyond myself, beyond this relationship level of who I'm having sex with or the past experiences that I've had, we come to the next layer, the next concentric circle. And this is the home layer. So this is all about how sexuality was perceived or taught in our home environment. So beyond the one-to-one relating, it's about how our family related as a whole. So this can be very much about where our home is located and the culture of our home. It can be how many generations were actually in our home. It can be about how many people were in our home. All of these things impact our sexuality. Whether sexuality was even discussed in our household when we were growing up. Was masturbation discussed at home? Were there open displays of affection between the adults? Was sexuality displayed in ways that made you feel unsafe or confused as a child? Was sexuality celebrated or respected in your home? In that physical environment, could you hear other people having sex? Or is right now your sexual expression hindered by who is in the home? Is it a sound issue? Is it a privacy issue? Is it a space issue? All of these things are super relevant and important to your sexual healing. How much intimacy exists in your home naturally? What was the relationship in your childhood home with nudity? And how comfortable were people with their naked bodies in the house? And what is the household relationship with nudity that you now hold in your current home? Was there alcoholism? Was there addiction? Was there abuse, trauma, neglect, emotional neglect in your home growing up? And is there alcoholism and addiction and abuse and trauma and neglect and emotional neglect present in your home life now? So you can see that as we continue to journey through layer upon layer, there is so much healing that needs to be done. There is so much that we need to learn. There is so much that we need to change. And again, this is an incredibly inspiring thing. This gives us so much potential. I'm covered in full body goosebumps as I say this. Now, being a very, very sensitive being, I find it incredibly hard to focus on the systemic problems in our society. When I feel like there's problems on the planet that I can't see a solution to, I become so weighed. I feel so downtrodden by those problems, and it becomes very overwhelming. I'm an extremely compassionate and extremely empathic person, and I remember even as a child, I used to cry myself to sleep because I couldn't save the planet. I used to have dreams where I'd just be hugging the planet in my arms and crying and just wanting to save everyone and save everything and save the planet itself, Mother Earth, from the destruction that's happening. It's not easy for me to look at things to this degree. Where I want to put my focus is on hope and possibility and potential and the things that I can actually instigate change and transformation in. So even though we're starting now to look beyond the home and looking at the larger picture of where sexual healing needs to take place on the planet, we can actually still instigate change on the individual level, on the level of the self. We can create this change. We can change things for the next generation. We can change things for our own personal experience now, and that ripples out and touches the other people in our lives. So as we start to look beyond the household and as we start to look at these systemic problems on the planet, please retain that perspective of hope and potential and knowing that we can actually make a change within ourselves, and that power is always available to us. That power, that privilege, that education, it's here for us all right now, which is fucking amazing. So the next concentric circle is about our local culture and our community. So this is everything that comes from outside of our home. And this is about the community where we were nestled in. This could be school, work, church, social events, friends' houses, gyms, sports clubs, like anything that's in our local community. So there, when we think about it, it's like, how comfortable were we, or are we now, depending on the community we're in now, how comfortable are we to express our sexuality? What are the social norms or cultural taboos that exist in your particular community? Was it in any way harmful or dangerous? Like when I think about my history and when I think about high school, slut shaming was so common for any girl that was sexually active in high school. You know, was that harmful or dangerous? Were you afraid to express your sexuality for the fear of those kind of consequences at your school, in your workplace? I live on a small island and there's a small sexual dating pool that happens in my area where people have slept with people who've slept with people who've slept with people who've slept with my friends who've slept with your friends that's a commonplace thing here. How safe is that? How comfortable does someone feel to be able to be okay with the fact that we might have slept with the same person, or you've slept with two people that are both friends? It's like, this community is going to be very different from a big city where there's millions of people existing in that city. So what did you witness at your school? What do you witness at church? What did you have? how safe did you feel to dress in the way that you wanted to dress? I remember getting woof whistled at in my school uniform all the fucking time. Like, just on the walk home from school, every single day, someone was woof whistling at me out of their car. You walk home under the underpass and there's graffiti all through that underpass of all these girls' names who are being slut-shamed, who are being called a whore or whatever it might be. Every single day, these repetitive messages are coming in about women who express their sexuality or being sexually objectified as a girl in a school uniform. You know, then we can have a look at also like our friends' homes. You are now walking into the home of another person. What might you see there? What might you experience? What is different in their home than your home? And what kind of experiences did that create? When I think about one of my first boyfriends and the first and early sexual experiences that I had with him at his house, and then walking back into his house and having his family comment on that and respond to that, I'm having these experiences that are impacting my sexuality. So the other thing about the local culture and communities level is now we need to look at virtual culture and online cultures. So some of my first and earliest sexual experiences were online, and that is probably not a safe place to get an early sex education, is to be going into chat rooms and having cyber sex with strangers and the pornified culture that the generation following me has been raised on. I was lucky enough that my earliest sexual awakenings, porn didn't yet exist online in the way that it did. It wasn't available to me until I was a teenager. So I was kind of in this transitional generation that did have access to it in some developmental years, but not the earliest developmental years. When I look at the generation beneath me, they were purely raised on a pornified culture. And so what does that mean for their sexual expression? What kind of healing or transformation might need to happen there? What kind of education were they given? Because that is where they were raised. So opening the Pandora's box of virtual and online cultures is a whole nother layer of healing. When we go out to the next concentric circle, we're looking at the social level. So this is really here the kind of prejudices and the oppression that can be institutionalized by the law or by the power structures. So this really applies to groups about things like having access to healthcare and education. And did you feel that you were part of a legally protected class? Did you feel safe in the world? You know, when we look at America and the Black Lives Matters movement, how a black man, what he might experience walking down the street and passing a police officer is completely different from what a white woman would be walking past the same police officer and having a drastically different experience. For me, what it's like to walk past a police officer in Australia is very different from the experience I have walking past a police officer in a country like Indonesia, where there's a lot more corruption. The feeling that I used to have of safety, of being able to rely on those powers that be, are not available to me here. It's not my home country. It's not a language that I speak fluently. There's known corruption. These kind of things impact our sexual expression in the here and the now. You know, simply being a woman massively falls into this category. What does it mean to be a woman in this world? And what are the things that have impacted our sexuality because we're a woman? Homophobia, racism, sexism, heteronormativity, mononormativity, all these things that society tells us or society deems as socially attractive or sexually attractive or desirable, the inflated beauty standards that are imposed upon us. There is so much healing to be done at the societal level. And then we go out, good news, we're at the final layer, the final concentric circle, the collective and the global level. So this really talks about what we're experiencing globally, and we are in the middle of a global pandemic. We are experiencing global levels of uncertainty and unsafety, and these are fundamental factors to the expression of our sexuality. It's going to vary for each different person, how much they need certainty, how much they need safety, but it is undeniable that what's happening on the globe at the moment is reflecting and expressing in our sex lives as well. So that feeling that I had as a child that I couldn't save the planet, that Mother Earth was suffering, that can create like an existential crisis for people about how safe they feel and the meaning of their life. We also see at this this layer or level, if I can get those two words out, is the collective trauma. What we might have experienced over multiple generations, whether your family history or your racial history, your collective history might include, say, slavery or genocide or famine or war. What we carry in our DNA from our ancestors, that they can scientifically prove that we're carrying trauma from the generations that came before us. All of these things exist in this nestled model of trauma. Our sexuality as women is something that has, basically, we're living in a world where every single force is against us. What we actually need for the healthy and fully expressed sexuality of women is the opposite of what the world provides for us. We have a lot of work to do. But again, let's focus on the fact that it's possible. That is so fucking amazing, that I am not the only voice that is sharing these messages, that it is safe for me to share these messages, that this information is available to you free of charge. Anyone on the planet, this podcast is out there. There are educators, there are coaches, there are healers, there are books, there are masterclasses, there are online courses. Like, we live at a time when this is fucking possible. Now, not everyone, it's not possible for everyone. And I recognize that and I honor that. But for those of us that have access to it, I feel it is our duty to do this work to elevate the planet. For those of us that have a voice, it is our job to speak up. For those of us that have access to healing, it is our job to heal. For those of us that have access to education, it is our job to educate. We need to take these privileges that we have been granted and do something positive with it and change the fucking world. And I know that when we heal and we elevate and we expand and we transform and we receive all the amazing goodness of sexual healing, that cascades out and touches other women on the planet. It touches the men that need the healing, the children that need the healing. Like, we will see at some point the scales tip, where we have more people working on the healing than those that are oppressed. Who knows when that might happen? But I have full and total faith that it's possible. It comes down to us as individuals doing the work. What an incredible honor it is that we can do this work. And why the hell would we not? This must be one of my largest values in life, is the willingness to continue to grow and transform, and that nothing will stand in my way. That I am in the ruthless pursuit of my own growth, my own healing, my own transformation. And through that, I teach and I share as much as I can with the world. I bring as many people in to that with me as I possibly can, that I share freely, and I make this available to people so that whenever they're ready and they want to do the work, that it's here and we're ready. It is a lifelong journey, my friends. I cannot fix you. It takes you to make that commitment. It takes you to be willing to do the work day after day after day. Yes, we take breaks. Yes, we need a rest at times. Everything moves in cycles and everything moves in chapters, and life is going to give you lessons to learn regardless. But when we have this privilege to learn, it's up to us to do so, with the recognition that this is a lifelong journey, that the healing never ends, the growth never ends, the expansion never ends. We cannot have some idea that you can walk into a one-off session and be changed. You cannot go into a 5-month-long worship course and think that's the end. It is just the very beginning, just the very beginning. So I love you all so fucking much. I hope you can feel the love and the peace that is radiating out of my heart today. I feel so fucking good today. I'm so fucking grateful for all that exists and this fucking amazing life that I live, and all of the fucking challenges that come with it. I'm just so fucking grateful for all of it. So if you wish, come to my masterclass, friends. It's going to be awesome. It's the foundational teachings, as I said. So whether you're interested in worship or not, you're still going to get amazing value out of it. This is a no pushing, no selling masterclass. If you want to know more about worship afterwards, you book in with me and I take you on a personalized journey, and we chat through where you're at, what I could offer you, how I could serve you, if that's possible. It's all there for the taking. I never push anything upon anyone, but I offer whatever I can. And I love to work with those who are ready to say yes. You know, just as a side tangent here about selling as a coach, if you have to sell and if you have to push to get people over the line, you have to push the entire coaching journey. And that is just so not who I am and not who I'm interested in working with. I work with those women who say, fuck, yes, it's the time. Even if they say, I'm so fucking scared, but I have a knowing. And I'm like, yes, babe, I know that calling inside, it's time. The women that just take themselves over that line, take themselves on the journey. And that's who I really love working with. So you will never find me selling. You will never find me pushing. You will never find me convincing anyone of anything. It is just here for you to take as you wish, to leave behind if you wish, whatever resonates, whatever doesn't, it doesn't matter. We're just going to enjoy this journey together. So I love you. That's my short summary of today's podcast. I love you. Full stop. Healing is a lifelong journey. Our sexuality is a lifelong journey. I cannot fix you. I can only offer you the tools, and you can fix yourself. You have the power inside of you. You have the potential inside of you. You've just got to choose, yes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to face this thing, and I'm going to start this journey and commit to it. Everything is there for you, my sweet loves. I love you so much, and I really hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as I've enjoyed recording and being back in my nest and sharing this goodness with you again. As always, I absolutely love to hear from you. So please come find me on Instagram, share the love. Let me know your takeaways. Let me know what you loved. Let me know what triggered you. Let me know if you have any unanswered questions. I want to know it all. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And until next time, you know what I'm going to say, laugh loud and fuck louder.